friends, I am Delta, and today I'm going to do something slightly different from what I usually do, and that's be an idiot. I'm actually going to say something that actually could help you. Now, in front of me, I have parts for a Scarab Cult Terminator and a Rubric Space Marine from Warhammer 40,000. If you don't know what it is, play Space Marine 2, you're going to kill a lot of them. Trust me, it's fun. Now, if you want to get into, doing the models, painting it, go for it, but be warned, it is expensive and rubrics are not something to be trifled with. Any Chaos Space Marine, they're, like, in the nicest way possible, they're a bitch to paint. And this is coming from someone who's painted a decent amount of them. They are a bitch to paint. I'm going to tell you a quick-ish way to paint Thousand Suns. Now, these are not meant to look incredibly amazing. They're just to be, you want the basic gist of the design. You don't want to spend 5 hours on a single one. Trust me, I've done that. It turned out good. I will admit, it does turn out good if you spend a lot of time on it, but doing models, it can take a lot of time. And if you've got 30, 40 models to do, you want to try and cut as many corners as possible. And here is where my idea comes in. The best way to paint Thousand Suns is to not paint them like Thousand Suns. Paint them like Death Guard. It sounds backwards, I know, but there's a reason to the madness. So to start off, when you build the models, do them in... You can do them however you want, but my best advice is to either do them in little sections like I've got now, like the legs are separate, the body's separate, or glue as much together as possible, but leave off the most important parts, that being the weapons, the arms, the head, and any extra crap that can, just be painted separately. The best thing to do is get 3 separate priming colours. The normal black I've got, that's for anything that will turn blue. So the legs, the body, the head, prime all that black. This will go more so for the rubrics than the scarabs, because they're little cloth. Let me have to use a little paper towel because this camera cannot, it sucks with black things. These are little cloth parts that go on the legs. The best thing to do is prime them with Wraithbone or any white primer you have. Then, in the most basic term, you don't need to paint the little thing white. It's already painted white. You can just go on to paint everything else. For the little shoulder pauldrons, these tiny little things, I will do actual images of them on the screen, so don't worry. My stupidity is not that bad. Prime them with gold, or if you don't have a gold primer, just prime them black, paint them gold. They're going to be gold anyway, it's just easier to paint the blue on top of it after the fact. Whilst priming them gold, you don't really have to worry about anything else. Their main colour is gold anyway, so everything else you prime black because you can just do blue on top. If you're going to do 30, 40 models, my best advice, at least with rubrics, would be build the legs, don't attach the cloth part, and attach the body onto it. At least get it in position with the cloth part, just so you know it's not going to collide with it, just to make it a bit easier. Then glue the body and legs together, glue the arms to the gun, and get them in position on the body where you want it to be, but don't glue the arms to the body. That just makes painting the body easier, and it makes painting the entire arms and gun a lot easier too. Don't glue the head on, just drill into it with like a small little pin vise, super glue a little bit of wire into it, and that will make painting the head so much easier, like I've done like I've done with the little scarab cult head. Then when it comes to any other details like swords, guns, whatever, paint it however, whatever colour you want. So it could be black, it could be green if you want, blue, red, whatever. The most important thing is do the base colour first. Don't focus on any highlights, because you can do that later. Get the solid colour first, and then paint it like a Death Guard. And by that I mean just drench it in whatever shade paint you use. The most important thing with this is you need to have patience for the shade to dry. That could take anywhere from a few minutes, depending on if it's a small part like the head, to maybe 20-30 minutes for the entire body and legs. Once the shade is dry, that's when you can properly go into the other colours. So what you want to do with this is, if you're going to paint it like box art, or paint it how it is in the game, one, I do recommend going into the game at this point, because they've got a, I can't remember what it's called, like a data terminal or something, that you can actually get an up close look on all the models. So that's going to be a godsend for me, because I'm going to be doing an actual diorama model, so to speak, based on Space Marine 2 and Lieutenant Titus fighting the Thousand Suns. The most important thing to remember with this is not going to be Golden Demon standard. This is not going to look incredibly amazing. This is just, you want to paint a good 30-40 models, but you have limited time and you just can't be asked to sit down and meticulously go over every single last one. And yeah, that's a fair thing to say. Like, the only reason I'm doing this video is because I watched the Warhammer podcast where they said there's no real speed painting way to do a Thousand Suns army. This isn't really speed paint either. This is just fumble your way to the top, so to speak. Where it's just prime everything the colour it needs to be, paint it the colour it needs to be, heavily use shade paint, and then add a little bit extra paint just to make it look good. That being said, when the shade paint is dry, what I do recommend is going along the tops of the parts. Does that make sense? Of course it doesn't. I'm an idiot. Use the exact same base colour. So let's say, for example, the blue you're going to use is Thousand Suns blue. Okay. If you use Thousand Suns blue, paint it, then use the shade. What I do recommend is going back over with Thousand Suns blue, just with a small brush, not like don't use something like this. This is going to be way too big. Use something more manageable, like a small layer brush, and just go as close as you can to the edge, but don't completely paint it. That will still have the recess, the shade in the recesses. You can make it look more, vibrant that way. You can add as much paint as you want on top of that. Just keep going lighter and lighter. One thing I do recommend is getting a wet palette. I always thought they were just kind of pointless. It's like, oh, you're going to make the paint wet. Okay, that's going to be a little bit harder to paint. It can be if you add too much water, like an idiot, like me. If you have just the right amount, it can make it decently damp. You can mix colours together, you can get a really good gradient going on. It's all about experimenting with models. You can paint it however you want, but this is just my way of thinking of the best way to paint a good 20 Scarab Occult, 30 rubrics in the most time efficient way possible. Prime all these tiny little god awful things you can't see because this camera's god awful. prime everything white. The main things you're going to paint blue, prime in black, and then just for the shoulder pads and any weapons you want to have gold, prime them with a gold paint, gold primer. You don't really need to do much with the gold. Just paint any things that need to be blue or other colours, shade that, and it's pretty much done. This is going to be, at the very least, my way of doing a fast Thousand Suns army. This might not work for everyone, but at the very least, if you want a decent looking Thousand Sun on the tabletop, and you don't want to spend an hour doing just one left eye, I think this is going to be your best bet. So this is going to be a decently fast way to paint Thousand Suns, but they're not going to look Golden Demon standard. These are just to make, slightly below box art standard, where they'll still look nice, they'll still look good, but they're not going to be perfect. Nothing you paint is going to be perfect, because there's always going to be one thing you wish you did differently, but that's a good thing. The more you fail, the more you learn. Hopefully this little tutorial will be useful to anyone thinking of starting Thousand Suns. And let's be honest, if you didn't need this tutorial, you've probably already painted 1,000 rubrics and you just don't want to touch a single one anymore. If you are going to paint more, then hopefully this tutorial will actually be somewhat useful. And if you're just starting out your army, this is probably going to be the best way to do an entire regiment without having to worry about every single last little detail. And if you're painting Grey Knights, God have mercy on your soul.